when Paul doesn't exit the cavern as expected. Does Lost Cavern Protocol force his brother Philip and the weary team back into the caverns to find him? Find out if Paul isn't lost. Has something more dreadful happened? Welcome to the Spinethrills channel, where your nightmares come true. Patrick Jones was sitting next to a roaring campfire, trying to warm up. He'd been down in the Hop Cavern system for over 6 grueling hours, scrambling and crawling into the tightest places he'd ever seen. All of this for the chance to make history with his brother Paul. Both would be the first adventurers to actually explore and map the Hop Cavern system for the first time. Roasting some barbecue beans, Patrick heard his stomach growl, smelling the food. In the same instance, he saw a strange light glowing in his wetsuit. Walking over and seeing it was his phone, and there was a text from Paul. The text read, "I've been down here too long. I'm getting hungry. Serves you right, you knucklehead, for pulling away from the team." Patrick growled under his breath, realizing his brother was 2 hours late returning. He didn't want to wake the team. Everyone was exhausted after the miles of squirming through Hop Cavern for so many hours. But Lost Cavern Protocol demanded it. Their campsite was 100 yards from the entrance they had found. They were lucky to even have located it. It seemed someone went through a lot of trouble to hide and bury the narrow entry point to the cavern. But Patrick and Paul had been caving and filming their cave exploits for years. They were professionals at spotting even the most minuscule of cave openings. How many times they had done this and hit pay dirt with towering floatstone chandeliers or glimmering stalactites, Patrick couldn't say. Maybe it was thousands by now. But what was different about Hop Cavern? Was it the size? Possibly. It might have been the novelty of its length and depth that had never been breached. No one had ever explored this place according to all their research. And that went double for creating maps or records. Nestled far north of Cougar Bluffs, Oregon, the cave was an enigma. Heck, the boys had been looking for Scarlet Caverns just east of the bluff when they found Hop. After they went home to look the cave system up for a future trip, their excitement had become nearly palpable. Realizing this, Hop Caverns was an unexplored system. But then, the peculiar things came into play as the boys asked around the neighboring town of Ascaris. Some people said they had never heard of the cave. Others, like Preacher Cavendish, went wide-eyed with the jitters. The tall, gaunt man with wisps of thinning hair locked his raven-black eyes on both brothers. He, in particular, raised 7 kinds of brimstone at the cave team, and especially Paul. As the silver fog rolled down Cougar Mountain, Patrick grinned even now, remembering how the old fool of a preacher had went off on them. Preacher Cavendish's eyes were bloodshot, and his mouth was slightly ajar with streams of spittle flying as he ranted crazily. "You boys and your friends mind me. No good comes from scrambling down into Hop Cavern. It's a dangerous place. There's good reason it got scratched off the history books. There's an ancient curse dating back before even the Native Americans lived around these parts. Stay out." The erratic and terrified display by the preacher had truly scared everyone, including Patrick's wingman Bruce Livingston. The tall and muscular boy with sandy hair feared nothing. But the lunatic rantings of Preacher Cavendish buckled his knees. However, to the boy's luck, the ranting preacher had let slip the actual name of the place. With the name, Patrick and Paul were able to go back hundreds of years into the town archives to find actual maps. 2 days into the map research, they had all the information necessary to make a safe descent into the cave. Paul had laughed heartily as they were making their ascent across Cougar Mountain to their Hop Cavern base camp. Was I the only one scared out of my wits by that lunatic? All had agreed. Some mentioned dismissively how the whole town seemed to have the wide-eyed jitters. Bruce chuckled, adding, "They kept giving us those cold steel eyes." He put his hands out wide and stood as he imitated Preacher Cavendish. There's a reason some caves don't get found. The cave team all laughed at his horrific imitation. It was now 3 hours, and Paul had still not returned. The same text had been sent by him 3 times. This was so out of character for his brother. Paul usually found his way out before anybody. Patrick's disciplined brother never pulled away from the team, or pulled risky moves like taking diversion trails to shortcut everyone. The fact that he did it this time, in one of the largest and remote places they had ever explored, should have been a massive red flag. Maybe the air had messed with his head. "We have to go look for Paul." Patrick woke everyone up and explained the situation. In typical exhausted fashion, the team groaned in displeasure, but got dressed to find their friend. 6 charged headlamps and damp wetsuits later, the team had re-entered the cave. After another hour, and 300 feet down in Hop Cavern, they passed a towering subterranean waterfall. It was here, when the first in their search team, Tony Cricco, disappeared. It wasn't until Patrick had stopped almost at the waterfall to rest that he noticed the last in their column was missing. The cave team became a buzz of panicked chatter. Even the stoic Bruce was on edge. Each looked at each other's panicked faces. Terrified eyes darted from side to side, looking in the endless cavern darkness for any sign of their friend. All realized now that 2 in their group were missing in Hop Cavern. Bruce nodded nervously to Patrick. "Something is Patrick," angrily interrupted. "There's something wrong. I know that, Bruce. My brother and Tony never acted a fool like this before." Patrick felt a gust of warm wind pass him from both sides. Wide-eyed, he watched what he thought were 2 massive, slimy bungee cords launched from 2 different caves. Stunned, his eyes caught a glistening of ooze on the ropes. Well, what he thought might be ropes. Terrified, Patrick watched helplessly as one by one, each of his friends was pulled out of sight, then another. He heard screams, a bone-cracking crunch, then silence. Nauseatingly, he caught the scent of a primordial stench from a second assault of what he thought were ropes. But the elastic bungee cord type ropes weren't ropes at all, but the whipping tongue of the cavern's long time. Inhabitant. Patrick's head whipped as he felt a powerful force yank him further back into the cavernous abyss. Screaming out in terror, caught between amphibious teeth, Patrick heard a terrifying sound before he met certain doom. A croak. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have a true story that is scary, creepy, or horrifying, which is well written, and you would like me to share, send the story to spinethrills@gmail.com.